Sitting second on the NSL ladder, Ian Crook says there's a good reason why home games have been tough.
We may be the victims of our own success to some extent, in that sides now coming here and defending, making it difficult.
After all, if the side keeps drawing matches, a top six placing is secure, making the United coach happy with things just the way they are.
They've not been bad results. That, no disrespect. If we'd have had them 3 draws against 3 of the lower sides, maybe we could look at something.
Marconi takes to the pitch, coming off last week's 3-0 whitewash of Parramatta Power, and United is brushing off suggestions old rivals will play a part.
Everyone's going to say the least theory factor with him coming back up here. Obviously, he doesn't want to lose up here, so whether or not they come up and play defensive or play against us, it doesn't really matter. It's what we do out in the park which will determine the result.
The team for Friday includes Joel Griffiths, but a decision on the team's strikers won't be made until he meets with the tribunal tomorrow night, answering to 2 red cards this season. Maitland Pool played host today as students from the region's secondary schools took a dive for the New South Wales CHS swimming trials. More than 1,000 competitors registered for the heats, having made their way through school and zone carnivals earlier in the year. Standout performers included 12-year-old Aaron Royal from Callaghan College's Walls End campus. The all-rounder continued a successful primary swimming career, taking first in all his events. Nicole Slade was the best of the girls, the 17-year-old Maitland High student winning all her freestyle and form strokes for a successful day in the water. AFL and the Black Diamond pre-season competition kicks off on Saturday, with matches taking place at both the Central Coast and Glendale. The first of the weekend games will see West Walls and Newcastle take on the Wyong Lakes Magpies, a new addition to the 2002 season at Manila Park, Glendale. Other matches include Newcastle City Blues taking on Woy Woy, Killarney Vale up against Terrigal Avoca, and Gosford fight it out with Cardiff. The pre-season competition runs over 3 weeks, winding up with a carnival-style day at Adelaide Street Oval, Killarney Vale on Saturday the 23rd of March. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Grey skies greeted the crew of the Windward Bound as the Brigantine sailed into the shelter of Newcastle Harbour. Just as Matthew Flinders was a pioneer of his time in mapping Australia's coastline, so too is the skipper of the Windward Bound. Up until a few years ago, Captain Sarah Parry was a man who now lives as a woman.
About 3 odd years ago, I decided to front the world and changed my gender and became Sarah. And what I found has happened since then is like a flower opening up. The world has just accepted it. In fact, so much so that sometimes I wonder whether my old self ever had any meaning at all.
The ship is Parry's brainchild, built 8 years ago to help educate today's youth about seamanship and Australia's early history. Those who sail with Sarah, like Newcastle's Hayley McGuinness, are full of respect for their captain.
And the amount of work that she does, and I don't even know half of it, so I think she's an amazing person.
The ship leaves for Coffs Harbour at midnight tonight, and Parry believes Flinders would approve of a woman captaining his ship.
I think he'd be tickled because Matthew Flinders was a very gentle soul, and in fact most of Matthew's friends were women. He had very few male friends except George Bass and 1 or 2 others. And he was a very soft kind of person, very soft male. And I think he and I would have got along very well.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The average age for Australian women to give birth to their first child is 28, compared to 24 in 1977. Professor Lee, head of the acclaimed Women's Health Research Group, attributes this to more women seeking education, career and financial stability before having a family. Her group has surveyed 40,000 Australian women over 6 years.
91% said that they would like to have at least one child by the age of 35. There's a difference between city and country women. Country women are likely to want more children, to want 3 or 4, while city women are likely to say they'd just like the 1 or 2.
30-year-old Centrelink worker Rachel Michael gave birth yesterday.
I've experienced a bit of the world, done a few things in a couple of different careers, done some travelling, settled into a great relationship, and then, you know, when you really know that the time's right, go for it.
A lot of women are establishing their career and then they feel they can go back to it.
But from the age of 20, female fertility starts declining. And it's those infertility, economic and career complication that the study group says will lead to a new generation of one-child families. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
I get a little bit of inspiration from my mother. She's a very strong woman and she's given me a lot, and she's just very strong.
Raymond Terrace Leisure Centre is the venue for the town's new sports cafe. Port Stephens Council has installed a boxing fitness circuit as it begins to address an overdue need for youth activities.
We're not close to the beach and it's not easy for them to have cheap sporting facilities. So we asked the staff to go out and find a way, and they have, and they need to be totally congratulated.
In addition to equipment, a state government grant allows qualified boxing trainer Damien Hudson to provide guidance and supervision for a growing band of participants at the free Tuesday night workout.
Yeah, we're getting like 20 to 24 kids coming, which is great.
The program is part of Port Stephens Council's plan for young people in Raymond Terrace. It's hoped the discipline from the boxing training will lift the self-esteem of local youth. The community is expected to benefit through a reduction in antisocial behaviour, vandalism and crime. Sports cafe users say it's the kind of activity young people in the terrace need.
If they're in trouble at home and that, it sort of keeps them out of trouble and keeps them off the streets doing other things, and it's really just a great thing to get out and do. It's keep you fit.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
The council's financial division has released what it hopes is the future rate structure for the Shire. It's seeking a 10% increase on residential and business rates to help pay for the maintenance of its assets. The Minister for Local Government is expected to approve a 2.5% increase, but Council is hoping the remaining 7.5% is also approved.
We've got to justify that on a basis of need and what we're going to do with it. One of the factors the Minister takes into account is what the community think of that proposal.
Mr Gessling says residential rate payers on average will only be $1 worse off a year. However, business rates will increase by an average of more than $600 per annum. But Mr Gessling says that's still $500 lower than the state average for comparable councils.
Whether that's a residential property that's leased out for holiday purposes, or whether it's a business that's operating full-time in a commercial area or an industrial area.
The proposal is expected to go before councillors at the next council meeting, and if approved will then go on exhibition for public comment. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
The saviour of Newcastle's presence in the National Soccer League and market mogul Con Constantine's next business gamble could be Newcastle's first casino. It follows revelations his first attempt at a $100 million development incorporating a five-star hotel and casino was knocked back last year. Honeysuckle's Worth Place site, 3.5 hectares of harbourside land stretching to the other side of Honeysuckle Drive, was considered the ideal location.
Well, there were 9 bids originally received. Out of those 9 bids, we've worked that down to 3 very good quality bids that have been shortlisted.
Con Constantine couldn't be reached for comment today, but a spokesperson for him says the massive casino and hotel project is now planned for another Newcastle site, the location and details to be made public within the week. Newcastle night star Andrew Johns featured in a yet-to-be-released 6-minute video promoting the casino hotel bid. Key aspects included Parkley-style markets, a multi-storey car park, a Euro-style piazza, cinemas and exhibition hall, waterfront residential buildings and viewing towers. Meantime, plans for Newcastle's newest CBD apartment complex at the former Terminus Hotel have been released.
We've tried to marry a new development with that without losing the qualities of the streetscape.
If approved, the $10 million harbourside apartments will be built next to the Metro apartments on Scott Street and the old post office on Bolton Street.
The Red Army Choir and Dance Ensemble has made a flying visit to the city for some pre-show reconnaissance. The Russian cultural ambassadors play Newcastle's Civic Theatre on March 24 and 27 as part of their 25th anniversary world tour.
A major transformation has taken place at the former Barnsley Primary School. Inside, it's still home to students and teachers, but the curriculum at the Toogoolawah School takes a much broader approach.
The first thing they have to do, and our aim, is to get them to begin to take responsibility and see a future for themselves. And if really that's all we do at Toogoolawah School, then we've accomplished a tremendous goal.
The school was officially open today and is the first of its kind in the state. Values such as truth, peace and non-violence are just some of the aspects incorporated into daily classes.
When you do something wrong, they will actually sit down and try to work out the problem with you before they take action.
Students are given specialised attention as well as support from visiting psychologists.
Well, we don't just confine ourselves to the classroom, we get out as much as possible for the boys to sort of expend some energy and do some community service work as well.
And the school has been made possible due to funding from Gold Coast businessman John Fitzgerald.
The value that I get out and see is just a group of individuals changing their own culture and that permeating amongst their families and the people that they know, so that we begin to believe in hope again, hope for our youth.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
How to make the Newcastle CBD safer for the public and businesses has been hotly debated for years. The Newcastle Alliance, representing city businesses, is now ready to ask Council to trial the use of closed-circuit television cameras.
We're very confident that the Newcastle City Councils, our partners in this project with the precincts, will give the trial an opportunity to succeed.
5 CBD locations would be monitored, including weekend night spots, the Hunter Street Mall and the West End. Newcastle joins Charlestown Mall as the only 2 Hunter locations with public surveillance cameras, but Lake Macquarie Council says its system primarily protects the local community centre. Cessnock is the only other location in the Lower Hunter to go down the surveillance camera path in recent years. While the cameras were installed, they were later withdrawn because of privacy concerns. The Newcastle Alliance is confident privacy won't become an issue for the Newcastle cameras.
We've been very conscious of the needs of privacy, and there have been government legislation put into place to ensure that the cameras, when they're operational, satisfy the requirements of privacy.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
While they may look cute and playful, these robot dogs have no time to be fooling around. They're in training for the Robo Cup. Their programmers, a team of students and academics from the University of Newcastle, have just months to get them ready before they take to the field in June.
The students program the robots to do certain things like to find the ball, to kick the ball, and to identify other robots on the field.
Unlike soccer's World Cup, the Robo Cup was extended this year to include 3 new teams, which these pups are part of. The robots, which are worth around $5,000 each, will accompany 6 students to the big event in Japan.
Over 20,000 people come along to watch the games, and it'll be broadcast on international television. So it's quite exciting just to be part of.
But first, the students need a name for the team and are after feedback on the following website. Meanwhile, the mechanical pups have already touched base with National League players from Newcastle United, and it may not be long before they teach their human colleagues a trick or two about soccer.
They met a number of the players, and the players were mystified initially, but then they became quite interested, wondering, whether they're going to be replaced in 50 years or not.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
It's a sight no one likes to see, a player lying injured on the middle of a pitch. United has come under some criticism since Friday night's 3-1 victory over Marconi over the handling of medical staff. But club boss Jock Graham says all appropriate steps were taken.
I certainly have looked at that issue and discussed it with our staff. Yeah, certainly I think there's an issue there we can learn from in terms of the doctor taking the lead role in the diagnosis.
As the NSL negotiation deadline draws nearer, United still has 5 players who are yet to come to terms with management. And at the serious end of the season, Graham means business.
I'd like to get all 5. If I lose any of those 5, that'll be disappointing. but it won't be the end of the world. We'll simply agree to disagree on terms and we'll move on.
The team heads west tomorrow morning in preparation for Saturday's match against the Perth Glory. Michael Prentice joins the squad for the injured Scott Bailey, and new signing Alex Moriera will see more game time against the most respected side in the league. And with more depth than ever in the side, there's a good atmosphere in the United camp.
I've got in my mind what I believe is a side that is capable of winning us a game if somebody put us on the spot today and said, right, you're playing in the grand final at the weekend.
Basking in glory before the match, Perth was presented with the minor premiership. The visitors quickly chased for some of their own, and after coming close, Joel Griffiths slid past Perth's defence. While the keeper couldn't get a hand on it, some thought Griffiths did. Defending a 1-0 lead was as hard as it looks, as Peter Sekenis went into the referee's bad book. It's the score sheet Bobby Despotovsky wanted to feature on, and given his early chances, you wondered how he didn't add to his season tally. An attack of a different kind saw Michael Prentice replaced, the defender suffering from asthma. Despotovsky was plagued all match. If Daniel Beltrame didn't stop him, something else did. Griffith's card collection grew, while for Perth, Bradley Hassel finally broke through. 1-1, as time ran down, the league's leading scorer made his move. Damien Morrie's 89th minute goal had the crowd cheering, but Peter Sekenis silenced them with an extra-time header that brought music to Newcastle's ears. The 2-2 draw keeping their top two hopes alive. Meeting the Burleigh Bears halfway seemed the best thing to do, and Lakes looked right at home in Coffs Harbour. Willie Hammond and Brett Camorley certainly warmed to it, with some great work between the pair leading to the Seagulls' second. It all looked a bit too simple as Camorley dashed over for one, before starting and finishing another to push the Newcastle Premiers into a commanding 24-point lead. The Bears clawed back with some slick tries of their own, but Lakes' win ensured a semi-final against Tweed Heads next weekend. The hits kept on coming for Ron Pine in last night's race for the state Super Sedan crown. In fact, the popular Newcastle driver had a hard time staying out of trouble. Once his brother John hit the lead, he was hard to chase down, winning another crown. St Patrick's Day in Newcastle was time to celebrate the tradition, with many turning out at the city's authentic Irish pubs. For many, breakfast was an ideal time to start the day, and then straight into the swing of things for those who didn't need any encouragement. But as the day rolled on, levels of confidence lifted.
As we stood at London Airport on that sunny August day.
It seems wherever there was an Irish band, there were people dancing and laughing. Now, while some didn't quite know what St Patrick is famous for, some were prepared to have a guess. while others have been searching since they left the mother country.
I'm Aboriginal and I've been out here since 1966 and he still hasn't paid me royalties.
And of course you don't have to be Irish to enjoy St Patrick's Day. It seemed today in Newcastle all you needed was a pint of Guinness and anything that resembled an Irish accent.
But if it's not convincing, it doesn't matter.
Put one on. Fake it. Why not?
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
The old cliche is take it 1 week at a time, but United have allowed themselves some forward thinking after the weekend's top-of-the-table clash.
If that was first versus second, we'd have been the ones going through because we'd have gone through an away goal.
Coach Ian Crook probably wished the equaliser didn't come quite so late. The Peter Sakana saviour coming just hours after he agreed to stay on with the club for another 2 years. The midfielder in sparkling form with 2 goals in as many weeks.
Yeah, I've never done it before, 2 in a row, so yeah, it's good. It's good, especially this time of season.
Asala Massi, though, isn't happy with his offer. After a meeting this afternoon, the club has given him until Wednesday to make a decision either way, or it will be withdrawn. As for the rest of the squad, Chris Zoricic and Matthew Bingley are almost certain to be rested this week due to groin injuries.
We just have to be careful and manage them. The one thing we don't want is we don't want to be missing them for the playoffs.
Scott Bailey will return, as will Mark Wilson, while Adam Hughes is tipped to make his top-grade debut against the Kings. It's a crucial match for United, who will need the 3 competition points to try and stay clear of Olympic, who have a game in hand.
It's been going on for the past 14 years, and this year is visiting 18 towns in 21 days. Today, it was Newcastle's turn. The 4 riders are supported by a crew of 12, and there's no problem getting volunteers.
There's a queue a mile long, actually. The guys that are sitting in reserve are just sort of waiting for someone to get posted so they can get a chance to come on the ride.
All 4 riders must complete the whole 2,275 kilometres. It's not a relay, and they have to be in Canberra next Monday, so there's no dragging the anchor.
A few flats, a couple of broken spokes, and that's about it, but we're pretty well prepared, and we've got backup gear in the bus, so it doesn't take long to get us back on the road.
The sailors won't reveal their target amount, but say last time more than $250,000 was raised. So if you see some brightly coloured cyclists somewhere between Newcastle and Canberra this week, look for the Bucket Brigade accompanying them.
Where's it go? Cerebral Palsy League, ACT, New South Wales and Queensland Down Syndrome Associations, Cubby House Toy Libraries and Noah's Ark Early Intervention Centres. We also support the Special Olympics as well.
It's called the World Skills Competition. It involves trainees and apprentices from almost every trade, from beauticians to electricians to designers and mechanics.
It's a good competition to come into, just for a bit of extra experience, to find some new skills, be a bit creative with your new styles and things.
The competition is being held in the Hunter, Mid-North Coast, Northern Rivers and New England. The winner of each regional category will compete in the national competition to be held in Newcastle in October. From there, they can take on some of the best apprentices in the world. But for some, winning isn't everything. Just ask apprentice butcher Chris Richards. The 16-year-old is blind and relies on the guidance of his teacher to act as a second set of eyes.
This is quite a difficult process for anyone, really. It's something that people that have been in the industry for some time still have trouble finding these seams, and it's just a matter of practice and feel.
The Hamilton TAFE student lost his eyesight through cancer when he was 12, but that hasn't stopped him from pursuing his career goals. He's now running his own butchery with the help of his dad.
You can't sit down on your backside all your life. And I'm that type of person. I'm determined to get out there and live a normal life like everyone else.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Ben Kennedy knew before the season began that his shoulder wasn't 100%, and he looks like he'll play the season that way. Missing the first round match, it's thought he'll make his return against North Queensland.
I think he's improved quite a bit in the last week or so, and I think it's got to that stage where I don't know if he'll get much better. So I think we're better off seeing how he'll pull up.
Steve Simpson has a slight knee problem too, but says it won't stop him from running out in front of his home crowd for the first time this season.
It's not too much, mate. It's just a little strain of my medial ligament, but it's feeling pretty good. It's getting better day by day, so very confident of playing.
As will young winger Anthony Quinn, with Adam McDougall given at least one more week to overcome his groin injury, while Jared O'Doherty remains on standby for Kennedy. If the weekend's results for both sides are any indication, you'd think the Cowboys would have little chance against the Premiers.
We're not at our best yet, and we need to make sure that we win the games we're expected to win.
The real problem could be the heat. That's something North Queensland does have on its side. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
They're the youngest record breakers in the country. 335 bouncing babies and their mums and dads made for a colourful spectacle today as they crammed into the lake leisure pool at Raymond Terrace. Led by swimming coach Laurie Lawrence, their mission was to beat a record set at a Mackay pool of 290 babies dipped underwater simultaneously. The Great Baby Dunk declared a success.
He's a champion, and now he's got a world championship already, 10.5 months.
A fun way to highlight the Kids Alive Do the 5 water safety campaign. Since it began 2 years ago, the number of infant drowning deaths in Australia has almost halved, from 63 down to 35 last year.
You've only got a few seconds to take your eyes off them and anything could happen.
Laurie still reeling after recent claims by some paediatricians that children under 4 shouldn't be taught to swim.
Look, I used to be a non-believer. I used to think neuromuscularly, physically they're not capable till they're 5. But once I had my own kids, started teaching my own kids, they're like little sponges and they love it.
Living proof is 3.5-year-old Shania Goodwin, who swims 25-metre races and beats most 5-year-olds. But Laurie sees a more important skill is knowing how to survive. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
In a road safety initiative with a twist, Lake Macquarie Council has enlisted the help of a life-size bunny in a bid to slow speeding motorists. The high-profile rabbit will be manning this radar speed check unit in various locations between now and Easter, urging drivers to stick to the speed limit.
It's about 95% of the streets in Lake Macquarie are 50k zones, and we're trying to raise awareness amongst drivers to stick to the 50k and not to do 56, 57, which seems to be the case with many drivers.
As part of the campaign, police will be stopping cars to congratulate drivers who are driving safely.
The latest patient pile-up at John Hunter Hospital's temporary accident and emergency facility was late yesterday. The worst affected 3 patients who arrived in separate ambulances. They had to wait 5 hours on stretchers in a waiting area before they received a bed or treatment. Those patients were a collapsed diabetic, a woman with a broken foot and a man with breathing difficulties. The ambulance union claims long delays are a common problem.
We've had up to 7 cars, which is half our resources of a night time, tied up at John Hunter up to 3 to 4 hours.
But Hunter Health says
John Hunter Emergency Department is a busy emergency department. There are times when we have peak activity periods.
It says the average time for treating ambulance patients is 20 to 30 minutes.
But they are being assessed from the time of arrival by the triage nurse, and we assess people's condition on the basis of a priority for care.
Ambulance officers are worried response times will blow out.
There needs to be more staff, nursing staff and doctors in the emergency A&E centre, and there needs to be more beds opened in the hospital so that once the patients are treated in the A&E, then they can be moved out into ward beds and treated appropriately.
But Hunter Health claims there are more staff and beds in the temporary facility than in the old A&E ward. Hunter ambulance officers have now delayed industrial action they had planned for 4 days' time. Instead, senior ambulance management at Hunter Health will hold crisis talks early next week.
Well, the way it looks, you got a good bit of speed on his inside, and most certainly got some speed on his outside. So the outside ones, you hope have got to burn across to try and get in close to the fence. And if it plays that way, it should be nice for him.
Premier Bob Carr joined a delighted Mayor John Tate, Science Minister Peter McGowan and CSIRO boss Jeff Jarrett in sparking symbolic hydrogen atoms to mark today's launch. Construction of the $35 million CSIRO Energy Centre at the Still River site at Mayfield is due for completion mid-next year. It will be a futuristic base for scientists researching sustainable and green energies.
You could say this is the knowledge economy. This is the new economy anchoring itself here in what was a traditional steel city.
Ironically, it could be the Hunter, with its heavy reliance on coal, that provides the scientific breakthrough for a viable alternate energy source. 100 employees will be involved in the cutting-edge research.
We'll have a hybrid system which combines solar energy and fossil fuel to produce efficiencies which we've never seen before.
It's the first major project for Still River, which has so far failed to deliver on the state government's promise of 2,000 jobs by the year 2000. It was feared even the centre would be a white elephant after it was delayed for 2 years.
I think CSIRO, as Jeff said, needed to establish that this suited them.
During his visit to Newcastle, the Premier also belatedly opened a $300 million upgrade of the world's largest and most efficient coal handling operation, which has been completed for some months. The expansion of the Port Waratah Coal Services loader has increased capacity to 90 million tonnes a year, opening up new export markets.
Germany said to me in September at the coal conference in Aachen, we are closing every one of our mines over the next 20 years. And we're very interested in Australia as a source.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
The attempted hold-up at the new Warana Hotel happened at 9 this morning, an hour before opening time. A door of the Pacific Highway pub had been opened by the 50-year-old cleaner, anticipating the arrival of a woman employee. However, while in the bottle shop area, the man was confronted by an intruder who pointed a single-barrel shotgun at him and demanded to be shown the hotel safe.
As a result of the confrontation, the man, the cleaner, was gagged and bound with tape before the man has run off, and we believe he's run off empty-handed.
The cleaner was found by his colleague and police called to the hotel. The hotel owner declined to be interviewed on camera, but says he has previously warned his staff about the need to be security conscious, especially around peak trading periods like Easter. He's now warned other publicans in the region to check their own security arrangements. A warning to business supported by police.
They need to re-evaluate their security and ensure that their cash is safe at all times, and also that their employees are safe at all times in the handling of that money.
The only description police have of the would-be bandit is that he wore a black tracksuit top and green tracksuit pants. Gary Blair, NBN News.
With their first finals berth ensured a few weeks ago and an unbeaten home season secured at the weekend, the next goal on Newcastle's list is now within reach. For top two, all they must do is beat Sydney United this weekend.
First time for quite a number of weeks now where we've been in control of our own destiny.
Newcastle sit 4 points clear of Olympic, but all sides below United have a game in hand. All 3 points this weekend, and they can't be caught.
It's just, I don't think people realise what a monumental effort this has been to get here. We're, as I say, we're not counting our chickens just yet.
It's goals that strikers love to count, and after coming close to nailing his first for Newcastle, Alex Moriera made sure everyone knew about it when he finally did find the back of the net.
The supporters here was great since the beginning, and when we came here, they always support me, and I think they deserve the goal. So when I scored a goal, we're just going there and celebrate with them.
The post-goal celebration didn't faze his coach, but the yellow card that followed does.
Once is fine, but we won't have that no more.
Nor will the Brazilian when it comes to free kicks in the future. Joel Griffith reinstated as the penalty specialist after some deliberation during the game. Jim Callanan, NBN News. For years, Chad Griffith had played second fiddle to some of the sport's biggest names, but in his fifth national final in the men's open board race, things finally fell his way. The only one to land a winning wave to shore, he went past competitors like Olympian Clint Robinson on his way to gold. The 25-year-old's delight was obvious on the run home. In a win, he'll savour. Spare a thought, though, for his clubmates in the under-19 surfboat final. With the finish line in sight, the surf swallowed them up and the gold medal. They weren't the only ones sunk, but it didn't make things any easier. Better news for Newcastle boxer Jamie Pittman, who will now represent Australia at the Commonwealth Games. After narrowly missing the Sydney Olympics, his spot for Manchester was confirmed after winning the Australian light middleweight crown at the weekend in Melbourne. He was also named Boxer of the Tournament. And in Premier League lawn bowls, Wyndale Gateshead is equal fourth, while just 1 point separates Beresfield, Charlestown and Maitland City, who were bunched mid-table. Named to play in the season opener 2 weeks ago, the Kangaroo star is still to play in season 2002. Back running, his return won't be in New Zealand.
He's indicated to me that he'll be a certainty for the Canberra game around fall.
Sean Rudder and Josh Perry should make the trip, however, despite respective knee problems. Their training restricted to the pool until later in the week before the squad heads across the Tasman at possibly just the right time.
I'm quite pleased we're getting to them early in the year rather than later in the year, and it's only their second game, so they might have a little bit of rust in their football team as well.
The Knights hoping to build on some areas of their own.
I think we're doing things pretty well with the ball. It's just a matter of just gaining that consistency throughout the whole 80 minutes, which is what we're going to have to do this weekend.
The squad to play on Easter Monday includes Jared O'Doherty, who is on standby should any of the injured not recover for match day, while Ben Kennedy will have 1 more week on the bench. He should still see plenty of action, especially against a formidable Warriors pack.
And I think our blokes are, generally looking forward to that, and I think they'd like to test themselves against a pack that's regarded very highly over there.
The Knights Warriors game will be telecast live on NBN from 1 o'clock Monday afternoon. Still a little battered from a bruising national championships, Jamie Pittman is still coming to terms with his selection for the Commonwealth Games.
It's unbelievable, all the hard work finally pays off. I've hardly slept with excitement and
I know I'm sore, but it's just overwhelmed.
The Shortland fighter was controversially overlooked for the Olympics. His win to reach the Commonwealth Games could hardly be questioned.
Well, he won a silver medal at the World Junior Championships, and we sat there and banged each other for 4 rounds, and it was really the fight of the tournament.
The light middleweight champ also earned Boxer of the Tournament. Pittman will now train in Sydney from Easter Friday until the Oceania Games are held early next month in New Zealand. That's followed by the World Cup in Russia before a lengthy training camp in Italy. It'll be the best preparation for the biggest tournament of his career.
We've got the kind of team that anyone can win a medal. No one can say someone can't win a medal. We've got, I believe, the strongest Commonwealth team that we've ever had.
Other hunter fighters to shine at the Nationals, 16-year-old Jamie Goodwin, who won his 3rd Australian crown. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Kurt Barnes was back on the practice fairway this morning after a 3-day break from the sticks, and who could blame him? The Australian Amateur Championship in Queensland was 11 days of golf, culminating in a 36-hole final that Barnes only won on the penultimate green.
When the putt went in, it was just, it was like a big sumo wrestler really. It had been lifted off my shoulders because it was just, I felt so light, and it sort of didn't really hit me that I'd actually won until I got home.
But the weekend win was more than a career highlight for the 20-year-old. It also means a berth in the Australian Open for the next 3 years, and playing the first 2 rounds with one of his heroes.
Being the amateur champion, I get to play with last year's winner, which is Stuart Appleby. So that's just going to be unbelievable in itself.
Being alongside the big names could be something Barnes will have to get used to. After all, the amateur title brings with it plenty of exposure, and an invitation to play in the US is already on the cards.
I've made plans to go to America this year to play hopefully 4 or 5 amateur tournaments, and winning the Aussie Amateur is going to make it a little bit easier.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Customers started arriving early this morning at the Newcastle Co-op. The filleters were hard at work keeping up with orders from people keen to follow the Easter seafood tradition. As well as the usual array of fish on offer, prawns are being sold by the bucket load, with oysters also popular. The Co-op opens tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. Meantime, Knights football stars Paul Harrigan and Robbie O'Davis have teamed up with the Easter Bunny and the Starlight Children's Foundation to spread some cheer and chocolate. The trio paid a visit to the John Hunter Children's Hospital, and while not all the patients thought it was a good idea, the visitors did manage to muster a few smiles. Meantime, students at St Philip's Christian College at Waratah were doing their bit by packing Easter egg parcels for patients at the Mater Hospital. But all the colour was at Merriweather Heights Public School, where the Easter Hat Parade was in full swing. It was the first time the school had held a function under its new covered outdoor learning area, and while some of the hat creations almost went through the roof, this one couldn't go the distance. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The 4-wheel drives mean nurses can now access their patients all year round, even with minor flooding. The improved service to areas surrounding Dungog is welcomed, especially for those requiring palliative care.
This service is now allowing people who do become very ill to stay at home, which is where most of them want to remain.
Today, the nurses made the journey to Underbank to the home of Betty Dar. The regular visits, which provide medicine as well as support, have been appreciated by the grandmother who's suffering from cancer.
I can ring them up any time through the day or night, and if I need help they'll come out and, if I'm in pain or anything, give you a needle or something like that.
While Dungog may not be as isolated as other towns across the state, there's still a need for the palliative care service. And there's also a demand placed on the area's 5 nurses, 3 visiting medical officers and a team of volunteers.
We have a lot of equipment and that sort of thing that we can bring up and bring into their homes, beds and recliners and all sorts of oxygen.
And often face-to-face contact is just as important in their treatment.
You know, you feel better if you've spoken to one of the girls or something like that than if you were sitting here on your own and, you know, and you had no one to ask.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Is hatred and anger and bitterness and responding in that way the only option that we have? And Easter tells us no. If that's the option you pursue, you're finished. The world is finished. There is another option, an option of a love that allows new beginnings.
I think people can get a little depressed when they see these sorts of things. So we need, I think, a message of hope, which is the message that Easter brings. You know, Jesus offers us new life. And in the midst of the darkness that we experience many times, I think that message of hope is one we need badly.
The guys have teased me that if I played every game since I first started, I would have played 400. But to get the 150th is something special.